So yeah, I'm Patrick Vine. I work at Prodigy Finance, and for the last little while, I've been trying to build a learning culture within our teams, and I thought I'd share some of the experiences and some of the ideas that we've been doing. So why? When you hire people, they should know everything already, right? But actually, no, we're really actually hiring people who have the capability to learn the technologies that you have if they don't know them already, or to learn the domain. So we're kind of expecting everyone to learn anyway. So why don't we make it a little bit more deliberate and intentional? For an organization in South Africa, and probably in the world, we have a shortage of developers. Everyone wants to hire great developers. Pretty much everyone struggles to hire enough great developers. So what does an organization do in order to fit this? Do we kind of just give up, or do we try to build something? There's a large number of inexperienced developers. This is a quote from YAO 2016, which is an Agile conference in Australia. It's attributed to Robert Martin. Martin Cronje at an Agile conference in New Zealand quoted a very similar figure, which was attributed to Stack Overflow. Every 5 years, the number of programmers in the world roughly doubles. So half the programmers in the world have less than 5 years experience. I'm kind of fascinated by the statement, and I'd really like to know in this room kind of how that plays out. So can all the software developers raise their hands if you write code for a living? It's pretty much everyone, right? Everyone who has more than 5 years experience, can you drop your hand? Okay. 60, 70, more than 5 years experience. Hand up, sorry. Hand up, more than 5 years experience. My apologies. More than 10? Okay. More than 15? There we go. Yeah, you know, okay. More than 20, and then we find out how old Aslam is. So it's interesting. There's a large number of inexperienced developers. So how do we up the game and allow us to have experienced developers? There's a vast amount of knowledge. There's a whole bucket loads of stuff to read, but the reality is you've got to read it. There's a lot of pages, and you've got to choose the right stuff. But you actually have to experience it and try it and play with it in order to actually really kind of grasp and understand, because a lot of these things are subtle. A lot of them work in some scenarios and not in others. So you actually need some experience in order to understand the information that's there. So it's not just enough to kind of consume the knowledge. So I suppose I'm saying experience is valuable, or is it? So there's the oft-stated, 10 years experience or 1 year experience 10 times. So what's the difference there? What's the difference between those two types of experience? And I would advocate it's learning. This is a quote from a talk by Kathleen Parvey, which is on becoming, am I a senior developer yet? It's very cool, give it a look. But the quote's by Benjamin Hardy. True learning involves a permanent change in the way you see and act in the world. The accumulation of information isn't learning. So I can learn a whole bunch about React. If I do nothing with it, perhaps I've just accumulated a whole bunch of knowledge and not really learned that much. When I start to change what I do, maybe things change. Flip that around to experience, and I kind of like it even more. True experience involves a permanent change in the way you see and act in the world. So when you're experiencing something, it's not truly valuable unless you're actually learning something from it. So if we're learning from a good experience, what is that experience? What are the principles and values that were good? If it's a bad experience, what are the principles and values that were violated? Having a JavaScript app that stands up and you go, oh, that was bad because it broke all the time whenever we deployed, and we go, okay, the learning there is JavaScript's bad, let's not do JavaScript. Perhaps it isn't quite as nuanced as it needs to be. So I advocate that experience should be respected. The old guys in the room, thumbs up. But we should discuss it and challenge it in line with what the organization's values and principles are, what the organization actually needs, because in this context, it might be slightly different, as long as you have a deeper understanding. So this is the problem I've been working with at Prodigy and trying to kind of achieve something with is how can we harness the true experience in our organizations to speed up learning. I have 3 hypotheses at the moment, which I'll run through, and then those kind of bleed into the strategies of what we've been trying to do and kind of the thinking that we have. So the first hypothesis is teams that value the same things in software will build software more effectively. So values and principles are important. They underpin what we do, even if we don't realize that we're valuing those things. It is there. So thinking about those, and when I say values and principles, I'm talking about things like XP values and principles. Scrum has values as well. An example of something that I value in software is confidence. Am I confident that what I'm doing is going to be right, is going to be successful? So deriving a couple of principles from that, I go with, what's the feedback loop? How do I know that what I've just done is correct? And how do I know it broke? How do I know it was right? Simplicity. If we make it simple, it becomes easier to understand and easier to know it's right. If we optimize for changeability, when we make a change, it's easier to see because the change is smaller. The amount of difference is smaller. If we optimize for the ease of understanding, when we read the code, we understand the code. Code is write once, read many. You're always reading it. If you can understand it, you know that this is the place to change. An idea I like to lump in ease of understanding is discoverability. If you're doing some sort of magic on the side that you cannot see within the code, it may be harder to discover. And then it's coupled, so when it gets changed, it breaks. How do you discover how this works? And the final one, deliberate intent. Can we deliberately design what we're doing so that it actually is more meaningful and the change makes sense? So that's an example of that. Second hypothesis. Teams that vaguely know where they're going will be more effective. The idea here is that we all want to pull in the same direction. We don't initially know what the end destination is, but we want to pull in the same direction. If we don't know where we're going, either we're going to stay straight here, or, because we have great developers, we're going to go in all sorts of directions, and this will not be as effective for the company. So if we know where we're going, we can pull in the same direction. But vaguely is important as well. You don't want to say we're going here, and all the autonomy of the people doing the work is completely removed. We want to go to a destination. We want to have a messaging system. What that messaging thing is shouldn't necessarily be deeply defined, because otherwise then you lose the autonomy and the experiments and the learning along the way. So know vaguely where you're going. And the last one that I'm pushing quite hard on is any decision that we make should be based on a mental model that can be expressed. We really need to move the conversations about why we're writing software rather than how. So if you can't express the reasoning, then perhaps the reasoning is flawed. An example is if I'm doing a code review and I don't like the code, but I can't actually explain why I don't like the code, maybe I'm just being opinionated. I challenge all my developers to, if I can't explain, then please ignore me, because it's just an opinion at that point. If we can actually have a conversation about what the principles and values that the team values are being violated, then we can go, ooh, how can we change this? Or actually, maybe the code has been written in a perfectly different way to what you would like, but it still meets those requirements. It meets those values and principles. And then that's fine. So, key learning strategies. Focus on understanding the values and principles that we have, know where we're going, and know why we're doing what we're doing. So, things we've tried. There's a bunch of things that we're trying at the moment. All of these things are really kind of trying to focus on understanding of what the values and principles are, as well as knowing why we're doing. So how do we question? Because we want to be able to talk about what we're doing and challenge it. So code appreciation and code review sessions. This is something that we were doing at Project Finance well before I arrived. It was a weekly session with all the developers in the room, and it was a rotating person, and basically talk about the code that you worked on in the last little while, present. It was a standard kind of code review type thing. At that time, there were probably about 6 developers. We have 19 now. and looking to grow more. So it goes, and we have 4 teams. So now it's broken down into, okay, we're doing that across, and each team is doing it individually. But that's an opportunity to look at the system that you're working on and go, how can we do this better? Why are we doing it like this? What are the things that we should be doing? Code Kata and conversation sessions are a learning session that we do on a Tuesday afternoon. That's all about kind of upskilling and talking about patterns and designs and things. Code Kata sessions, Code Katas have been mentioned several times. What we're doing on a Friday morning, so it's not really that well attended because it's a Friday morning, is repeating a kata, probably in a mobbing scenario because it's normally 2 to 4 people all around one computer, and repeating the same exercise over and over again. How does it look if we want to do it functionally? What does it look like if we're doing it in object-oriented? What would it look like if we had a fluent interface? What would it look like if we changed the code like this? And we talk about it. And it's the same exercise with a different solution over and over again to kind of challenge us to understand what it would look like and talk about. We do Scrum, so we have retrospectives. They're obviously an opportunity to talk about why and challenge why and kind of push that. Coaching. So I joined to coach across the teams, and up till then I'd been mostly in teams, and that's kind of easy because we do Scrum, and when you're in the team you do the work and you pair and you work with people. When you're outside of the team, in Scrum, you don't mess with the team. So it's kind of like, what are the levers that you can pull in order to have those conversations? We're doing continuous delivery, we're moving towards continuous delivery, continuous integration, and so which means we need to drive down our length of our branches. So that becomes a conversation for me to have with people about how do we change our engineering practices? How do we change our designs so we can repetitively deploy on a daily basis? Code branches lasting longer than a day are not great. Talked about Code Kata and conversations. The kata and is crossed out because it started there and kind of not really doing katas that much, and people still call it kata, and it's kind of like, oh, it's not that anymore. 1 hour a week. We do a focused exercise. We write up something on the wiki, which is 1 or 2 small little things, ideas, patterns, whatever, and then there's an exercise of that. Doing TDD with pairing, and kind of the developers work through something, and then we close off and talk about it. What do we learn? How did it look? And all that sort of stuff. On the right is a bunch of things that we've done so far. As I say, focused learning, we've gone through things like what is functional, what is OO, what's behavior-driven design, what's domain-driven design, what are the patterns? What patterns come up with domain-driven design, and kind of getting people to have a common language and be able to kind of upskill to, ooh, I know what that means, and we can start talking about what that means. And the best thing about this is going to the next day and looking at code review and seeing comments that come straight out of the stuff that we've done the day before. So opportunities to knowledge share. So this is really about knowing where we're going. So we have code sharing. This is now monthly, so this is all 19 developers talking, but it's more team, what can we share across the teams? So they actually have an idea of what the other teams are doing. We can share, we're doing integration tests like this. We're doing our environment stuff like this. We're bringing up machines like this. We've moved this out, and there's this whole new environment over here. Just general knowledge sharing, which happens as well, but it's more explicit. Guilds, we have a couple of guilds. Guilds are an idea that comes out from Spotify. Hendrik Nieberg's written a lot about that. The idea is you have a functional discipline across multiple teams, or functional area across multiple teams that get together and talk and kind of work out where they're going to go, and then they can drive that forward within their teams. So we have a UI UX guild. We've got an architecture guild, which is driving us from kind of our monolith to what's next. Security, CDCI, which is now kind of morphing into DevOps, because that's actually more our problem at this point. We've got a database guild, got a data guild, because we're trying to drive into the data science space. Domain jams. This is kind of getting bigger. Domain jam is across the whole technology team. And the idea there is just to share understanding and share knowledge. Quite often that's actually guilds kind of presenting something in. So we've had domain jams on Scrum. Why do we do Scrum? What are the intentions of certain things? Let's not cargo cult, because we need to understand. We've done stuff on architecture, where our architecture is going. Let's talk about that. Our DevOps stuff, we're starting to move into Docker, Terraform, and Ansible. Where are we going with that? And all the way to how our bonds work. We do educational loans, so how do our bonds work in terms of how they're financed? So there's a whole range there. And then finally, we have a tech blog. I personally am very intimately conscious of the idea that wikis can be places where information goes to die. And how do we keep that alive? So the idea there is, let's have knowledge of decisions and ideas, but also the stuff that we've learned so far so that we can actually collaborate about it. And when new people come on, they can actually look at it and kind of get up to speed, because that becomes the next problem. Ooh, we're all moving and learning and understanding, and the collective here knows kind of that common thing. You start bringing more and more people on who haven't had that knowledge. How do you get that across so that we all kind of don't kind of drop down to, ooh, no one knows it anymore? So, learning so far. I think we are successfully changing the conversation. I think we're changing the conversations from what's right and wrong code and syntax to what are the principles and values that we have, and what is the design that we're trying to have. I think we are starting to build some true experience in the team. We've got a whole bunch of people coming on and bringing ideas. I think we are removing any cargo culting on, ooh, we have to test this way or that way. And it's like, let's challenge that, let's understand. Key learning for me, not everything is a teachable moment. I joined Prodigy Finance with this goal to really question and elevate why do we do stuff, and challenge and get people thinking. And in large group scenarios where someone is presenting, they don't necessarily appreciate that kind of interaction as well. So it comes to kind of back off and go, when is the right point to kind of challenge and have the conversations? The other learning for me is not everyone will engage, and that's fine. The organization, the goal here is to make the organization more awesome. How do we, as a tech team, become more awesome? And if people don't engage, hopefully enough people engage, and we do have enough people engaging. How do we have enough people engaging so that they take the ideas back into the teams and the teams become successful anyway? So what's next for us? More. I'm going to keep doing it. I think there's a lot more to do. I think we're just getting to a point where we're kind of getting to the, ooh, we're really challenging and asking why, and thinking of principles and thinking of things like feedback, and how do we do something that's the easiest experiment in our product development, et cetera, et cetera. So I think we're getting there but there's a lot more to challenge and learn. I really want to increase the collaborative nature. We've got a whole bunch of great people who have joined. We've got some great JavaScript and front-end developers. We've got a lot of DevOpsy stuff that we're doing, and we need to learn that, and we need more people to be kind of sharing that knowledge and basically allowing us to harness the knowledge from everyone, and let's drive that, which leads to lots of different tech, because currently we've done a little bit of JavaScript, but it's been mostly Ruby and design, but also a whole bucket load of more. We need to dig more into Solid, we need to dig more into coupling and cohesion, and all of those things, and just repeat it, so that we keep on coming back and having the conversation. These are just 3 links. The talk link is going to be linked up at Agility Matters. The top link is a very similar talk by Martin Cronier at Agile New Zealand last year. He talked about building a craftsmanship culture. It's a very similar idea, so if you're interested in this stuff, go listen to him as well, and listen to what he's doing as a development manager over in Myobi. Building a learning culture, there's a blog there on kind of what I'm talking about here, and then I've got a blog post there on values and principles and confidence, and so if you're interested in that, feel free to read and comment. Thank you very much. I